So there's another break in the Matt Gaetz story, and we keep hammering on this story because news keeps breaking seemingly every couple hours. Now, the latest bit of evidence is that Gaetz and his friend Joel Greenberg, who just lawyered up and is taking a plea deal likely to turn on Gaetz, used Venmo back in 2018, 2019 to pay some of these girls, to pay some of these women that we've been talking about in this broad investigation. I want to read you some exclusive reporting from the Daily Beast. It says, in 2 late-night Venmo transactions in May 2018, Matt Gaetz sent his friend Joel Greenberg $900. The next morning, over the course of 8 minutes, Greenberg used the same app to send 3 women varying sums of money. In total, the transactions amounted to $900. The memo field for the first of Gaetz' transactions to Greenberg was titled Test. In the second, the Florida GOP congressman wrote hit up blank, but instead of a blank, Gaetz wrote a nickname for one of the recipients. The Daily Beast is not sharing the nickname because the teenager had only turned 18 less than 6 months before. When Greenberg then made his Venmo payments to the 3 young women, he described the money as being for tuition, school, and school. I'm totally sure, guys. The Daily Beast examined these records as a scandal is certainly engulfing Gaetz through Greenberg. So the basic rundown is earlier today, we talked about it, Joel Greenberg is testifying in his own trial. He's going through his own trial. He's been indicted, and his lawyer and prosecutors have agreed likely to take a plea deal. The exact parameters of that deal are not finalized, and they are not yet known. But as Greenberg's lawyer said earlier today, what's been happening should make Matt Gaetz not feel very comfortable, which I think is a lawyerly way of saying that they're going to use all of the things Greenberg knows against Matt Gaetz and maybe some other high-profile Republicans to protect Greenberg as much as possible. Now, I'm sure that he might still get some pretty stiff penalties if this is all true, but if it is true, then Greenberg is in a perfect position to say, yes, Gaetz sent me those $900, and then I took those $900, divvied it up between these 3 women, and it was not for school or tuition or school. And that's all Greenberg has to say, and that will be at least some pretty powerful circumstantial evidence. What this shows is that whether it's with the 17-year-old or his Bahamas trip or with Greenberg, Matt Gaetz was using his friends and his associates and his donors and his political entourage to gain access to young women, often exchanging money in the process. It's totally scummy behavior. It's totally illegal behavior. It's totally immoral and hypocritical behavior, given that Matt Gaetz often typifies himself as a defender of children and a respecter of women, and he criticizes liberals for being neither of those things. It's absolutely really bad looking. All you can think here, Occam's razor, the least complicated explanation, the simplest explanation is often the correct one. Matt Gaetz was paying these women for what they did with Matt Gaetz, and he was just trying to very basically filter it through a third party. Matt Gaetz didn't want to give the money directly to these 3 young women, so he gave it to Greenberg to give it to them. But of course, Matt Gaetz is a dum-dum. He's an educated lawyer. He's a member of Congress. When this was happening, he was a member of Congress. But he's literally using an app where the records of when transactions are sent and who they are sent to and from are publicly known. So he's just basically forever on the internet giving himself receipts that will be used to basically hang him in court. A lot of people on Twitter, if you're following this story on Twitter, a lot of people who were maybe more skeptical than I was that Gaetz was in serious trouble, as soon as this story broke, said, oh my God, he could go to jail. And I think I am more confident now than I've ever been that Matt Gaetz really could do hard time, given that not only do you have this actual piece of very strong evidence that he was exchanging money with girls that he really didn't have a reason to other than what we all suspect, and you have Joel Greenberg, who knows Gaetz, knows all the skeletons, and has just likely agreed to testify against him and to give evidence against him. I really do think Matt Gaetz is going to jail. And as we've talked about, some of the things he's accused of doing could send him away for life.